Katie Hopkins is back with another hot take. I genuinely haven't seen her since she said that thing about how she doesn't allow her children to play with other children who are named after locations.
Brooklyn or London.
Your child's called India?
Yes, but you know, that's because it's not related to a location.
But this time she's talking about vegans and meat eating.
The other great thing about us meat eaters is that we don't sort of use our children abusively to put messages up onto social media whilst looking cute. I don't want to eat cows, mummy, because they're so nice. I don't want to eat fish, mummy, because they're living things, and I don't want to kill living things. Just as a reminder, don't abuse your children to push messages on other people.
So if parents were forcing children to say something and recording it and then sticking it on social media, then yeah, that obviously wouldn't be okay. But from what I've seen, there are countless and countless examples of young children realizing for the first time that they're eating animals and genuinely feeling upset about that, and stating very clearly that it's not something they want to do anymore, often to the surprise and bewilderment of their parents.
Because they're animals and I like animals.
So what will we do if we miss eating chicken and meat?
I don't miss eating chicken and meat.
How about fish?
Fish?
Yeah.
Fish? Is it an animal?
Yeah.
I won't eat that either.
Oh my God. So what?
I won't eat animals!
Okay.
And when I see videos like this, I find it really endearing that these very small, tiny humans whose entire experience of the world is being created by these big adult humans who seem to know everything, to feel that like deep intuition that something's not okay here, and to go against the norms set by their parents and be like, no, I'm not doing this because I think it's wrong, out of concern for animals. Like, I think that's really great. Like, that restores my faith in humanity. And so I don't think this is something to like make fun of children for. I think like we should encourage that kind of compassion and self-confidence to stand up for what they believe in.
And secondly, if these animals weren't farmed, they wouldn't be alive at all. You wouldn't see them in the first place.
Of course, it's true that the animals we eat would not have existed had we not been breeding, farming, and slaughtering them for food. But what Katie fails to see is that the fact that they wouldn't exist had we not been doing this to them, well, that doesn't provide a good justification for continuing to breed and slaughter them. Imagine if someone started breeding new dogs specifically for dog fighting, and I were to object to that. Well, they could say to me, hey, these dogs wouldn't even exist had I not been breeding them for dog fighting. Well, we would want to say, okay, yeah, that's true, but that doesn't justify continuing to do it. And if they had to go through terrible training procedures before being ripped apart by other dogs, we would say, well, yeah, they're probably better off not being born. Please stop breeding them. And when it comes to farmed animals, I know a lot of people don't really like thinking about this subject, but it's important to understand a bit of it for the context of explaining why Katie Hopkins is talking a load of rubbish. The vast majority of farmed animals in the UK are chickens, who typically live lives full of misery. Broiler chickens, which are chickens raised for meat, have been selectively bred to grow extremely big, extremely fast, which means when they're only a few weeks old, I mean, they're still babies, they are just grotesquely massive. And so their legs can't even support their own weight and they can't move around properly. I think as a culture in the UK, we're more aware with the problems of like keeping hens in cages, but we're less aware of the problem of the physiological cage that we're putting animals in by selectively breeding them to be optimized for meat, dairy, and eggs. I feel very strongly about this issue in part because I actually visited a British chicken farm myself. So I entered one of these sheds, which had over 40,000 birds inside, and I found birds who had tipped upside down and were just completely unable to turn themselves back over. And as I continued to explore the shed, I found the remains of more birds who had tipped upside down like this and had died that way, either from having a heart attack or from being unable to reach the water. And they're just lying in their own waste, which means there's a problem with ammonia, which burns their eyes and their skin. So you'll just find these birds that have missing feathers because of the burns. It's like super common. And they have no stimulation other than the stressful situation of being crammed next to thousands of other birds, and of course the food. And they're sleep deprived because the farms keep the lights on so they spend less time sleeping and more time eating, so they get bigger faster. And so when you're aware of the situation that these animals are in and you hear someone like Katie Hopkins try to justify eating them by the fact that we're giving them life, to say they wouldn't even exist if we weren't eating them, I want to scream like, yeah, good. Would you want to exist if that was your experience of life? If you had to choose between being born as a chicken on one of these farms or not being born at all, which would you choose? They are obviously better off never coming into existence. Like, if reincarnation is real, given the number of chickens that we're doing this to, we're going to be fucked in our next lives. Not only does Katie Hopkins seem to be ignorant of the fact that yeah, these animals are living lives of misery where it's so much better if they don't come into existence, it's also like the condescension in which she speaks is also like infuriating when she's obviously so ignorant about this subject.
The other thing you'll notice about meat eaters is that we don't try and force you to eat this. We don't go, eat meat, eat meat, eat meat. We're just happy that you might choose to. So we're not trying to make universities 100% plant-based so that old students can go and suck on the end of a locust while they're being taught absolute bollocks.
She's talking as if veganism is some mundane diet choice that has no ethical implications. The reason meat eaters don't care whether other people eat animals or not is because they just don't see it as an ethical issue. It's seen as a personal choice. And the reason vegans don't want other people to eat animals is because they've realised that there is a victim who suffers and dies. It's no longer a personal choice if a human or an animal suffers as a result of that choice. And let's be honest, most Brits would lose their shit if we treated one Labrador puppy half as bad as we treat millions of pigs in this country. When Kurt Zuma kicked that cat, everyone lost their minds. We can shove millions of pigs in gas chambers where they scream in desperation and no one says anything. In fact, you will be criticised if you speak up about this issue for being annoying and preachy. Just imagine if it were dogs in those gas chambers. So can we stop acting like people are unreasonable for raising the flag and saying, hey, we need to do something about this isn't okay? Learning about something like that and reacting with indifference because you just like bacon too much or because you have too much cognitive dissonance to actually empathise with the animals, that's far more unreasonable. If the animals we're torturing on factory farms barked, then maybe Katie Hopkins would see this as the ethical issue it is.
Say hello to everybody. Tell them not to be worrying. Oh, and yes, I love you just as much. Yes, you're great too.
And I will just say, if you want clues as to what you should be eating in order to look strong and healthy and fit, we do have these things. You have incisors for a reason. They're not there, these white things, for chomping down on a Brussels sprout.
By the way, plenty of herbivores do have canines. But anyway, of course, humans did benefit from eating animals in the past, and I wouldn't be here right now if our ancestors didn't eat animals. But just because our ancestors did something, and just because we have the capacity to do it now, that doesn't morally justify doing that thing. The evolutionary past of our species is just filled with human-on-human violence, including rape, including genocide. But we recognise that that doesn't tell us anything about how we ought to behave to each other today. And likewise, the fact that we have canines, well, that doesn't tell us anything about how we ought to behave. Given that eating animals does cause so much harm, so much animal suffering, and given that we can be strong, fit, and healthy without eating animals, as shown in the Netflix documentary Game Changers, and there's plenty of examples of vegan bodybuilders now, given all of that, I think the children in those videos might be onto something. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I do have a more interesting and more in-depth video coming out in the very near future. Someone tagged me in this Katie Hopkins video today, and I was like, okay, it's probably kind of my job to deal with rubbish like this. But if you want to see future videos, then please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. I'll see you very soon.